listening to the Latina Leadership Podcast, the podcast made for Latinas by Latinas, with Angelica Cázares, Carolina Arenas, Diana Ruby, Jacqueline Villagomez, and Sonia Ramirez. Get comfortable, amiga, and enjoy the conversations.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Latina Leadership Podcast. My name is Carolina Arenas, and I will be your co-host for today. I am very excited to share with you all our guest. Not only is she from the motherland, well, from where my family is from Colombia, but she has an amazing career trajectory, and that is Ms. María Paula Correa. She is the Chief Relationship Officer of Libra Group. And prior to joining Libra, Maria worked for the government of Colombia, first as an advisor to the Chief of Staff of former President Álvaro Uribe, and as the Chief of Staff to the President Iván Duque. So, Ms. Correa, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Well, Carolina, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here and to learn more and a lot about this opportunity and initiative that you have for the Latinas community in the U.S.
Yes, and like I said, we're very thankful to have you on board because I know that you're going to have some amazing input. But something that I always like to start off with is I like to ask a little about yourself, just your background, like where were you born and raised, where did you go to school? And something sometimes plays a role in how we do things in our life is for siblings, right? Were you the oldest, the youngest, the middle child? So if you can share a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely, Carolina. Well, I was born and raised in Colombia. I went to law school in Colombia as well at Universidad de los Andes. I did my specialization there as well at Universidad de los Andes in public policy. I am the youngest of four, but I'm from the second marriage of my mother and my father. Well, not my mother and my father. I have three siblings, two sisters and one brother. All of them actually live in the U.S. and have been living here for a number of years. My two sisters live in Houston and my brother lives here in Miami.
Oh, I'm in Houston too.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, so their mother married an Argentinian guy that worked in the oil sector. So that's how they ended up living in Houston. And then my brother went here to FIU in Miami and just stayed here. And so I'm the only one. I'm the only child from my mother and my father, his second marriage. And so, that's a little bit about myself. Then in 2009, I moved to New York. I was appointed as a consul for the Colombian consulate in New York. And when I was there, I lived in New York for almost 10 years. I went to Columbia University and I got my master's degree in an MPA, Master in Public Administration, with a concentration in economic policy. And well, that's basically my background.
So where does that passion for law, like where does it come from? Did you always know as a kid that you wanted to, work in law or?
No, you know what? It was more a passion on political science. I always thought that I was going to study political science. My mother is very into politics. No relationship, however, for politics. No, I don't have any family that has worked in politics or in the Congress or in the government. But my mother has had a very strong passion on following politics. She's very opinionated, and I think that's where I got my passion for politics. I can tell you that since I have memory, I was always watching the news, reading newspapers, following what's going on the political world. I even remember the first presidential campaign in Colombia that I remember was the one that happened that happened in 1994, and it was very funny because my mother was supporting one candidate and my father was supporting another candidate.
Oh, that's hard.
In Colombia, back in the days, the Liberal Party, we had the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party, and there was a lot of violence that came into having the power from each of the parties. So if you were liberal, there was no way that you can get along with the conservatives. But well, my mother and my father married, and she's conservative, and he was liberal. So he was supporting the liberal candidate, she was supporting the conservative candidate, and I was supporting the conservative candidate as well. And I was, I don't know, maybe 12 years old. And I was very opinionated with my father about why he was supporting that candidate, why not the other one. And there's a very funny anecdote in Colombia. My house is in a street that a lot of cars pass through, and there's this huge building, huge wall, windows that are ceiling to floor, and I put all the, I don't know, affiches
Like
from the
posters,
candidate.
the
The
posters.
posters of the candidates, I put them in the windows, and then my father was like, "Everyone knows I live here. How come you put all those posters from the conservative?" So yeah, I can tell you, since I have memory, that I have this passion. I've been following politics since forever. And the story of how law came into my life was when I was deciding what to study. I was talking to my mother, and she said, "Well, why don't you consider? I feel that political science is like, you need a career that is like more centered. Why don't you?" And I had the opportunity at the Universidad de los Andes. They have this, like, you can do a dual program.
Okay.
So she told me, "Why don't you start with law and then you take the credits of political science?" I was like, "Okay, I'll do that." And you know what? I am so grateful that my mother asked me to do that, because I really loved law, and I didn't like that much political science.
Yeah, but
I
again, you have the ability to mix them together, right? Like that's the advantage
I did the
too.
dual program, but if you ask me today, I would have only be a lawyer. I think the other one
Mhm.
was okay, but I am really I would, if I had to start all over again, I will study law.
Oh, but that's a lot. That's heavy. Those are heavy. Those are heavy careers. And what you were saying, yeah, there was a lot of times that, or years, right, of big problems in Colombia when it came to politics. So again, I know that you were involved and you worked in the chief of staff. That position in and of itself is pretty hard, I believe, right? Like the chief of staff, you're the, I don't know, like the glue to everything, like the mediator, the peacemaker, the everything. Did it push you more to join and apply to become involved with politics, the issues that were going on in Colombia at that time, because you wanted it? Like what pushed you to apply and try to get that career in politics with the president?
Well, it's funny because, as you mentioned when talking about my background, I worked as an advisor to President Uribe's chief of staff. So for me, that office was well known.
Hmm.
We have an expression in Spanish that says, "Hey, you knew where the bathroom was when you started." So no, really, what happened is I was living in New York. I was working for Concordia, which is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that builds partnerships for social impact. And I was there, and Iván Duque got elected or nominated by his party to be the presidential candidate. We had a strong relationship and friendship from a number of years ago, and he just asked me, that was January 2018, "Hey, do you want to come and campaign with me?" And I'm like, "Absolutely, I would love to go back and campaign. I love campaigns. I love more campaigns than the actual government, because in the campaigns you can, propose and think about all the good things that you can do, and then when you're in the post, you're like, well, it's not as easy as I
Yeah,
thought."
no, definitely not.
So I said, "Absolutely, I want to go. I want to go join you." So we campaigned, and it was a very nice campaign. We campaigned for almost 6 months, and he had to win 3 times more, because he had to win the nomination of the party. Then he had to win. They did another kind of pre-selection of different parties to go to the first round. So that was the second time he won. And then he won the first and the second rounds. So we campaigned from January to May, which March, the first nomination, then May, the first round, and June, the second round. So finally, he was elected in June 2018. And during the campaign, I was, as I said, his back keeper. I was working on his agenda, on his calls, on his speeches, on everything. And so when he was elected, he said, "You want to be my chief of staff?" And for me, it was like a dream come true. I mean, going back to the same office where I grew up for so many years, learning and shadowing the chief of
Volunteering.
staff, and I'm coming back to the same office where I kind of started my professional life. It was like a dream come true for me.
That's amazing. And then how was your experience working in politics
Well,
overall?
it's I mean it's great overall, but again, it is hard as you were saying. Um, it's a mix of things. I am not the normal figure of a chief of staff. I was the first ever woman under the age of 40 to be the chief of staff of the Presidency of Colombia. So that was a statement.
Mhm.
Uh, Generally, the chief of staff is, an old guy with a lot of experience, a former congressman
As,
or a
as we
former
see here
minister.
in the
Or,
American government as well, yes.
so I was out of the model. So, and I was very low profile. I didn't like to, go for interviews, or I didn't like to be mentioned a lot. And so, but as you said, that role, and I think you described it perfectly, the glue. And it's the glue to make things happen because you control the agenda. You have to be the one having the relationships with the ministers. If the president says, I need this to be done, you have to be the one to tell the people that are involved in that decision to make that happen. So it's it's a very detailed job. You have to be all the time available, attention to detail, and I mean, there's no rest at all.
Yeah, no, I couldn't
So in
imagine.
general, it was. I mean, I love to have that job, but it was very challenging. There were a lot of things personally that affected me. I was bullied by a hashtag in Twitter that was trending topic for a number of years. The hashtag was La Moza de Duque, so the lover of Duque, because no one could believe that a woman under the age of 40
Mhm.
could be or could have that post. So personally, it was something that really affected me. And again, we were the government that was ruling under COVID. So we were in government
Oh,
for
forget it. Yeah, you
the
were you were the bad guy for
14
everything.
years of COVID.
Mhm.
And we were also victims of a lot of social unrest. So, I mean, what can I tell you? It was very
Yeah.
difficult.
But with
But at the
that
end,
but with that being said, right, it's still like you said, it has the bad things and it has the good things. And the point of this, right, is for us to remind women, regardless of their age, that if this is the passion that they're going for, to go
go for
for
it.
it.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Once you're in there, like what lessons did you learn, or what would you apply or give that advice to that woman that is there so that things don't deteriorate them, right? So like I'm sure you seem to have this as like you're strong and you look like you're strong-willed, but what about that woman that got the position, finds out that there's a hashtag, decides to quit? Like what advice would you give them in that
I mean,
position?
the first obvious advice would be don't give up. But again, if you're going into politics, you have to know that you need to have hard skin.
Hmm.
And in this world of social media, of fake news, I mean, everything that's going on, you have to have hard skin. If you don't have it, it's difficult. It's
Hmm.
difficult. I don't know what else to say because it's the only thing that you have to have, and you have to be very confident about yourself and about your skills, and that you can be good at what you're doing.
And
So
did
I'm not saying that it won't affect you, but politics is such a difficult world that you really have to have the passion, the will, and the hard skin for things like this, to for overcome things like this.
and did you have any mentors, any mentorship or?
Actually all of the people that gave me the first opportunities in my life are my mentors. As I said, my first actual the campaign where I did work was in 1998. I was 16 years old. I was in high school, and I just knocked the door of the young committee of this presidential campaign, and they gave me the opportunity to be part of that. So everyone that gave me the opportunity of being part of being Maria Correa, not Maria Correa, the daughter of Maria Correa, related to X or Y. No, it was Maria Correa, period. So everyone that gave me that opportunity is a mentor to me.
Yeah.
I have acquired things from each one of them. The former chief of staff of Uribe, from where I got a lot of what I am today and what I applied when I was the chief of staff, I take it from her. So I have a lot of mentors, and of course, President Duque is a mentor. President Uribe was a mentor.
No, the fact that you had a list of amazing mentors that I would wish to be like, hey, can I email you? but yeah, so mentorship is important to be, strong-willed and have that like drive to complete the task that you want. So I realize that your career has been both, back home in Colombia and then here in the U.S. Again, something that we always talk about is that, as being a woman, there's challenges, but there's even more challenges when you're a minority. So being a Latina woman in the corporate world, have you experienced any challenges there? And then how did you overcome or navigate those challenges? And if you haven't, then, what has been positive of being Latina, right? Because being bilingual is amazing.
Well, I've had the honor and privilege of working in the corporate world in the US for kind of the same group that I used to work before the government. At Libra Group, Libra Group is the founding sponsor of Concordia, where I used to work. So when I came back, when I came back to Libra, came back to the family, let's say, of Libra, I wanted to do good on a global scale, and this is the perfect thing, the perfect path to do it. And in my experience, I haven't feel any segregation or any, because I work for really good people. I work for people that they're also, they're Greek heritage from, so they're not, they have also felt in the past as a minority, so they understand that very well. They were a Greek family that moved to the UK, and they were seen in the UK as the minority.
The outsiders.
So they understand that very well, and they give opportunities to like the array of people in the world. It's a company that operates over 60 countries, has 20 subsidiaries. So you can imagine the amount of people that we have in the group. And they are very close to the Greeks, and Latins are very similar.
Oh, yeah.
And they're very close to the Latino culture. So I am happy to say that I haven't felt any segregation or as a minority in the corporate world.
No, and that's amazing. I love to hear that. Yeah, in government, just the way that you think.
And I felt it more, just to close on this, I felt it more towards other governments. So when I had to talk to my peers, so you have to go and meet the chief of staff of President X. And then the guy was waiting for me, and he looked at me, and I was like 37. And he's like, oh, are you the chief of staff? Or are you the advisor to the chief of staff? Or I'm the chief of staff. But that's where I felt it more. But I'm very happy and honored to say that I haven't felt it in the corporate world.
No, I love to hear that. And then, so again, amazing career trajectory in politics. Now you're at Libra Group. So if you can tell us a little bit about what Libra Group is and how your career your whole career before you joined Libra, the little things that you were able to gather and now apply to the company that you're with at the moment.
Yeah, I've had or how I say it is, I haven't changed career paths. I've always been in the intersection of the public and the private sectors. When I worked for President Uribe, I was in the public sector, but from working from the chief of staff, you have to work with so many stakeholders that you have a lot of experience with everyone. And then I went as a consul, and then I went to Concordia, and in Concordia, my role was creating partnerships between the public and the private sector for social good. And so back to government, and now at Libra. What is Libra? Libra is an ecosystem made up of 20 businesses where we have real estate, aviation, hospitality, energy. Um, and we have as well 10 philanthropic initiatives that are housed and run by Libra Philanthropies, which is a completely separate foundation from the group. And we operate in more than 60 countries. And we are a group that cares more about doing social good than business. So we first look at opportunities where we can create or scale social impact, and then we look at the numbers. So I love that, because for me, having the experience of being able to scale the social good, and when you go to public policy, or when you go to politics, you want to do good, because no one would go only. It's such a hard work. You're so exposed. The only reason that you really go into politics is because you're passionate for good, right? And so for me now at Libra, as Chief Relationship Officer, being able to scale this social good, right, in a global perspective, it's very important for me.
And what is your role as the Chief Relationship Officer? Like, what does that look like?
It's government relations, it's relationship with stakeholders, it's crisis management, it's communications. So it's basically my role as chief of staff, but my boss now is Libra.
Okay.
Not a person, is Libra.
Mhm.
I work with the subsidiaries, I work for the philanthropic side to try to put together and connect the dots and look how we can create more good and how can we best communicate what we do. So
And
yeah,
where are you guys located? Where is Libra?
so our headquarters are in New York, but as I said, we operate in more than 60 countries. For example, I'm here in Miami, but our real estate company called Elandis is based out here in Miami. We have our energy company, Greenwood Energy, that operates for Latin America. It's in Colombia, with offices in Panama. We have offices in the UK, in Germany. So our shipping industry, well, you can imagine where all ships
All
go
over.
in the world. So yeah, so we cover 60 countries with our operations.
So, and typically, what companies are you aiming to work with, or ideally, like your partners, right? Like, what is the ideal partner that you look for?
It depends on which business are we talking. As I mentioned, in the business side, we have energy company, we have an shipping company, we have an aviation company. So it depends on the business we're dealing with. But of course, we do a lot of work with banks, with venture capitalists. We make a lot of work with other energy companies that are looking into going green and to comply with the Paris Agreement and all the carbon neutrality goals for 2030 and 2050. So it depends on which of the subsidiaries we are working on.
Working with, okay. And then women that are trying to get into this field, what would you recommend, or like how would they go about it? What do you have any advice for them? I don't know. I mean, I know you guys have a lot of pillars, right? Like the nonprofit sector. But what would you let them know? Like, hey, this is a starter, or
So
volunteering.
I'm going to do publishing here. We have a great program that is called the Libra Internship Program. It is housed under Libra, not Libra Philanthropies. And this is a program that covers over 40 countries. And you can apply to the Libra Internship Program, and you can be placed either in Singapore working with our shipping company, or you can be placed in Barranquilla working with our energy company, or you can be placed in New York in the headquarters to get an overall of the whole idea of the whole organization, or you can go to the UK and work in our aviation industry. So this is the best program, and that I can recommend for someone that doesn't really know which sector to go, but they want to go into the corporate world. Libra internship program gives you a lot of skills and opportunities
Oh,
to.
nice. And they can find that on the website. Is it
Yes.
application or?
Yeah.
So you, with such an important position in your job, how do you manage or handle, stress or balance, what people like to say work-life balance?
Hmm. Now that I have more work balance life, I can say if I need, like, for example, now I exercise kind of every day. I have more time for myself. And when you go into this type of jobs, it's impossible to have a balance, like a neutral balance. But the thing that keeps you going is that you know it has a term, it has an end. I mean, you know that you're going to be there for 4 years. So you say, well, it's 4 years and I'm going to be doing this. And then maybe I'll take a break, I'll go to the private sector. And so for me, that was that idea, that notion that it was coming to an end was what really allowed me to not have a very work balance in my life during the past 4 years.
So, any self care routine that you have or that you would like to put in place?
No, now I am completely into self-care routines. I go to the gym almost every day. I do a lot of things that I couldn't do in the past.
Oh, and then how do you stay? How do I word it? Like, how do you stay in the loop of a fast growing, you know, career that you have, or not career, but the area that you work in, right? It changes, I believe, drastically with technology, with like you said, oil and gas. Like, there's constant changes. How do you stay, like, up to
I
date
mean,
with things? Do you still do
you have to,
educational
you have to,
or?
yeah, you have to keep informed, but also you have to keep your network active. You have to keep your name, you know, vivid, and try to look to join organizations that can help you with your network. Um, Try to look for, I don't know, board of directors from companies. If your company allows to, you can be, for example, I'm part of the board of El Tiempo newspaper in Colombia. So that allows me to be kind of,
Connected,
still in
active.
the, yeah. And I mean, just be informed, have opinions, and just give some sweetness to your network all the time.
And then besides the Latina entrepreneurship, the Libra internship, are there other resources that you feel have helped you in your career, or that you would recommend for upcoming Latinas that are trying to join the area of workforce that you're in? As far as like you said, internships, make sure to network. But if there are
Yeah.
any other resources that you have that you would
No,
suggest?
I feel that in my case, it was all about network, all about pursuing. As I said, I started in politics when I was 16. I knocked the door of a campaign. I was still in high school. No one knew me. And I just say, hey, I'm here. I can go do any work that you put me to. I can go, I don't know how do you say this in English, but repartir volantes en las calles
Oh,
for a
like you just
campaign,
hand out flyers going.
the publicity from the candidate in the streets. I can, I don't know, provide copies for you, but anything that you put me here to do, I'm gonna do it. So, and
like like
again,
like we like they say back home, para las que sea. Like, put
para las que
water
sea.
around there for
Aquí
everything.
para las que sea, exactly. Para las que sea, and from there you can, people understand that you're always there, always available, and that they can count on you for things. And that's where you start proving yourself. Oh, let's talk to Maria about this. Let's call Maria Paula. She's available, huh? And then you start making relationships that allow you to go for your next step, and then your next step, and then your next step. It's all about connections and relationships,
Yeah, and
honestly,
building those relationships, right? Like
and
you said
building them out.
before. Yeah.
Exactly.
And so, what advice would you give to the next generation of female leaders?
Keep them going. I mean, keep them going, pursuing. Yeah, do not give up. We can do it.
Yeah. And then something that we ask all of our guests is, do you consider yourself a leader? And if so, why?
Um, Definitely yes. And I feel, and for me to say yes to that question, which can be difficult, I more than I consider myself a leader, I want to be an inspiration for other women to persevere with their dreams. You can make it happen if you want. That's what I feel. I can be more of a leader and to be an example for other women.
Awesome. And is there anything you'd like to share before we sign off? Favorite, you know what? I'm going to do this, but favorite, being Colombian, what is your favorite Colombian dish that you can't live without?
I have a couple. I love a really like rich chicken soup or the ajiaco. I love it.
Un consomé.
Or the typical fried fish from the coast with coconut rice and sweet plantains. That I love too.
Yummy. Well, and
What about you?
I'm sorry?
What about you?
Oh, me, la bandeja paisa.
La bandeja paisa.
And then un sancocho de cola. It's like, it's homey. It reminds me of like going to visit my grandma and stuff.
Where is your family from in Colombia?
So they're from Medellin originally, but everybody lives in Pereira now.
Now I see why you like the bandeja paisa.
Yeah. But anything from back home is good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so again, thank you, Miss María Paula Correa, for being with us. Again, just stay tuned for more. And like we said, keep that strong will and don't let anybody tear you down. And if your career path is politics, go for it. And if you need any helpful resources, Ms. Correa is an amazing person to reach out to, LinkedIn or their Libra Group website. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Carolina, thank you so much for this opportunity, and I would love to collaborate more with this Latinas initiative. Anything that you need from my side, just please count on me. And I think opportunities and spaces like this are every time more and more needed in this world. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
What did you think of the conversation? If you enjoyed what you heard, let us know in the comments. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Thank you for listening to the Latina Leadership Podcast, and we will see you next time.